Hello and welcome to the ICT Pulse podcast. I'm Michelle Marius, your host and the editor and publisher of ICT Pulse, the online platform where we discuss ICT issues from a Caribbean perspective. In this episode, we'll be discussing addiction, specifically digital addiction. As much as we might laugh or feel bashful about the fact that we are lost without our cell phones, and if we hear a notification or alert, we feel compelled to check it immediately, for the past several years, especially with the popularity of social media, there has been a growing concern about the addictive qualities of the internet and the wider digital space. In September 2018, the World Health Organization officially recognized gaming disorder as a disease. Whilst this recognition does not yet extend to other areas such as social media or broader internet activity, there is anecdotal evidence along with growing research which suggests that we might need to be more vigilant with respect to our online activity and how it might cause changes in behavior. We are thus delighted to have Dr. Rodney Stewart, a clinical neuropsychologist based in Curacao, to help us to, among other things, have a better understanding of digital addiction and how we might begin to identify it in ourselves and others. Dr. Stewart is also the owner of Interact Diagnostic Learning and Training Center, which provides neuropsychological assessments, treatment, counseling, and training services. Enjoy. Dr. Stewart, welcome to the ICT Pulse podcast.
Hi, thank you very much, Michelle. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, before we begin, and by nature of the topic of our discussion today, I do believe it's important for us to emphasize and advise our listeners against self diagnosis and treatment, especially just based on this discussion and the information and insights you will be sharing. Doctor, what are your thoughts?
Well, of course, this is a very interesting topic. Addiction is a broad known topic, and today we're going to talk about the gaming addiction, which is a more specific kind of addiction. But in any ways, all in every sense, addiction is a serious condition. So, whatever we discuss today, whatever advice you get today from this program, it is important for always to seek your professional help, to talk with your GP, the doctor that is treating you or can help you, because every case is different, right? So maybe you will hear some advice, which is great, but we need to be always alert. Every person, every individual is a different person, so it is important to be alert on that and to seek professional help if you think that that's needed.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, so let's, I guess, get into the discussion itself.
Good, great.
So tell us a bit about yourself, Dr. Stewart, and what does a neuropsychologist do versus what a psychologist does?
Yes, that's a very interesting question because I hear it a lot. I get that question a lot. First of all, I'm Rodney Stewart. I'm a neuropsychologist here in Curacao, working for almost 19 years already here on the island. Studied in Holland, worked there for a year, and then came back to Curacao to start my practice. It's been going well. I love this job. It is a job working with people, helping people, gives me such satisfaction. And lately, the last couple of years, sharing information is also a passion because you help through different canals. Neuropsychology is a specialization within the broad sector of psychology. So psychology is the study that the science that studies behavior and emotions. And neuropsychology studies behavior and emotions, plus also what relationship there is between emotions, behavior, and your brain functions. That's why the word neuro. So neuropsychologists like to see behavior and emotions in a sense of neuroactivity or brain related activity, and that makes it more broader because if someone comes in with, for instance, emotional problems, not only we look at the environment or maybe the household or education, but we also look at how is the brain functioning? Is there something in the brain that could explain the emotions or behavior of this particular person?
Absolutely. So I think you are, excellently placed to guide us through this discussion on addiction and certainly digital addiction as well. So
Yes.
let's probably just jump to that and give us a sense as to what addiction is.
Yes. A lot of people think that addiction has specifically something to do with a substance or a particular stimuli. Addiction is a sense, it's an emotion, it's a feeling. What is what it is that you have a perception that you need, and sometimes your body asks you for this particular substance or behavior or pattern that you need it to function. I had cases of addiction with people that are drinking. Let's say an alcohol addiction. They're drinking a whole box of beer a day. But I had also people who are addicted at one glass of cognac a day. So it's not the amount; it's more the perception or the feeling that you need it to function. And one of the important parts of addiction is not only that you are, let's say, you need a certain substance or you need a certain pattern of behavior, but it disrupts your functioning. That's another criteria that's very important to take into account. This addiction will disrupt your social functioning, your career, your vocational functioning. So it will have impact on your all around life functioning. That's what makes it the addiction really an addiction. Yeah.
Understood. Now, just moving to the term digital addict, for example, and from what I understand, it's really not a medical term. What is your understanding is the medical community's view on digital or technology addiction?
Yeah, well, recently, like you said, Michelle, in your introduction, recently the APA recognized gaming disorder in the newest diagnostic statistical manual of mental diseases as a disease that will be officially named as a disorder, which up until now it's not already recognized as a medical term, but this will happen soon. But the fact that it will happen is because worldwide everybody's seeing, and the medical profession definitely, and in the psychology profession definitely, that it is a growing problem. It is a serious problem, not only with the youngsters, not only with our young adults, but also with older adults, that we're seeing that this addiction to internet, gaming, everything that has to do with the digital world is growing fast. So the fact that it's becoming officialized in the diagnostics criteria means that it's been seen as a serious condition. And the gaming disorder is again a an addiction that's very subtle. With most addictions, it starts off very subtle, but eventually you will realize, and people around you will realize it before you mostly, that you cannot do without it, and that's when it becomes a real addiction. That you will be sleep deprived, or you won't accomplish your responsibilities because of this addiction, of this need to give yourself the satisfaction of being on the internet or gaming, etc.
Okay. Actually, that now leads me to two questions. Have you seen any cases of digital addiction in your practice, or are you aware of any cases?
Yes, I've seen them. I am seeing them. So there are still treatments, some of them. Up until now, I have a lot of young adults, adolescents also coming in, and mostly they are referred or advised to come to because their mother or their father, their parents, or the school signals this addiction, and then they want them to get treatment for it. I do think that it's not only in our youngsters, it's also something that's very active in adults. But as a lot of these addiction diagnosis, it's, there's this taboo, and adults have this tendency to say, no, I'll deal with it and I'll manage it. And I know what to do, but my child needs help, so they drop them off here, and then hopefully they say, okay, Stuart will fix them.
Mm.
Yeah, it's not so easy. But indeed, it is children that are losing weight because they're gaming, not wanting to eat, losing sleep because they're gaming. Eventually, this will affect their social life. It will affect also their school career, of course. And that's where it starts to be noticed, mostly through their lower achievements in school.
Mm.
And teachers will, talk with parents and ask them, okay, what's going on? Is there a change? And then, well, yeah, eventually it comes up that he's gaming too much. He's gaming the whole night, and then you're tired to go to school. So this is how it manifests, in practice.
And are you seeing, at least from your experience or observation, that is primarily the most prevalent area where the addiction is occurring currently? Is it among gamers, or are you seeing it for other aspects of the digital space, whether it's social media or online browsing or?
No. Well, it's still an area that's been studied, but of course, the two major areas are gaming and social media.
Okay.
And I don't have experience with people coming in with an addiction specifically on social media. Uh, Up until now, mostly patients came in with a gaming addiction. But
Right.
I do believe that social media is an issue. I mean, I know of a lot of people that they really need to turn off their phone in order to function, because the whole day on Facebook, on other social media platforms, to keep to stay attuned.
Yes.
And it's amazing, Michelle, how this came about. I mean, not so long ago, and it's taking over so fast. Yeah?
Absolutely.
So I do believe social media is a problem too. Definitely,
Mm.
definitely.
Okay, and the second question, granted that you now have raised another question, but let me ask the second question that I wanted to ask, and it's about there seems to be a relationship between digital addiction and depression.
Yes.
So, what might be the link between the two?
Well, it has two levels. It has an emotional, psychological level, and also a neurological level. I will try to explain this. The emotional, psychological level is whenever we are addicted to something, and in this case, we're talking about digital addiction. If we don't get it, or we're not able to get what we want or we think we need, and that's in the case of addiction, this will give us this rebound effect, this feeling of emptiness, this feeling of, what else is there for me, etc. So depression can come as a result of not getting what you think you need, right? That
Yes.
is the most emotion. That's the part, emotional, psychological. On a neurological level, a lot happens in the brain. For instance, let me give an example of gaming, because that's what's very obvious. In gaming, if you play a game online, or on your computer, or on your iPad, whatever, there's this rush, this flight fight emotion going on, which is a lot of dopamine in your system, in your brain, which triggers you to prepare you to act fast, or to fight, or to flight. It brings you in this modus. This is a reaction we used to need when we were hunters and gatherers. So
Yes.
we would run away from dinosaurs and things like that. Nowadays, we don't need that anymore, but our children, they use it whenever they play a game, which is exciting. The thing is, the moment you overcome a level, it will give you this feeling of satisfaction, a rush of dopamine and serotonin, which are all neurotransmitters in the brain, that gives you this state of feeling great, it's feeling good. The moment you don't have that, well, let me explain like this: the brain accustoms to whatever we give it. So if gaming gives you this rush and you don't have it, then it seems like you need more, or your brain doesn't make it enough. And that's where depression kicks in, because depression is lack of dopamine, lack of serotonin. If I could say that you can create serotonin in different ways. You can play an exciting game, or you can do some workout in a gym, or you can buy it at the drugstore. And at the drugstore, it's called antidepressants. It's serotonin. So gaming gives you this rush up, and then your brain gets accustomed to this rush. And if you don't have it, it drops. The serotonin drops in your brain, and that gives you also the depressive mode and mood.
Understood.
There's a very strong relationship with, well, any kind of addiction and depression. It is this The addiction is to give you this rush. Yeah, if it's alcohol, drugs, or gaming, it gives you this rush, and if you don't get it, your brain is asking for it, and if it doesn't get it, it gets down and gets in this depressive mode. So yeah, there's a strong relationship. Yeah.
Are there any other mental or behavioral issues that might be connected with digital addiction?
Well, yeah. There's some. Well, there's a lot of studying. A lot of studies are going on right now, but there is a link also between personality disorders and social addiction, or gaming addiction, social media addiction. There are some personality disorders where people have this need or urge to get out, to let people know what they're doing, or to be very involved in what other people are doing. So social media is a great way of doing that, right? Is you have people that are constantly looking at what people are doing in their lives, and we all know that on social media, which is a great platform, but mostly we put the most beautiful photographs on it, right?
Yes.
So people get this idea that everybody's life is so beautiful, but well, it's only a selection of life. So, and there are some personality disorders like borderline, but also narcissistic personality disorder, that have this urge of being out there and letting people know what they do, or getting to know what people are doing. So, like getting information.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And in your opinion, why is technology so addictive? Have you given any thought to that?
Why it's so addictive?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think everything that facilitates, which gives us a great feeling, can be addictive. Mostly, if we talk about addiction, and this is quite different in gaming disorder, or this addiction, this new addiction that's called gaming disorder,
Right.
because most addictions we know as a medical condition are connected to a substance. Yeah.
Yes.
So alcohol addiction, we got drugs addiction. We got this addiction that is connected. We have even caffeine addiction. It's also a substance, and gaming is an activity, or internet is an activity, which is quite different. I think everything that gives you a sense of pleasure that you control is addictive. So, besides alcohol, gaming, or drugs, I do think that if you like candy in a certain way, and you control that you can be addictive to candy. And we know of studies also that there's this sugar addiction that we know about.
Yes.
But it is accepted, right? And everybody needs sugar, so we take it. It's accepted. But there is a real problem with obesity based on this sugar addiction that's been running the world for a lot of years. So I think every addiction, everything that gives us pleasure, and I think the digital world gives us a certain kind of pleasure. I mean, it facilitates the whole idea. A lot of people have this whole fantasy about everything is organized in my little phone. Everything is there. You have all your information organized. You have access to the world in the palm of your hands. This is all a pleasurable, can be very pleasurable for some people, and you are in control. and that's what makes a digital world so addictive.
Understood.
Yeah.
Are there any tests that you think we can administer as individuals to determine whether or not, or the extent to which we might be addicted to
Yeah.
technology, our phones, social media, gaming, whatever?
I don't. They're not. So far, I know there are not specific tests that measure addiction for internet or the internet addiction. But there are tests that measure the vulnerability of being addictive. So what can be measured on a level of the personality and the psychological evaluations, we can check to see if you or someone is prone to addictions.
Mm,
And that can be an addiction of alcohol, gaming, how do we say, gambling, or drugs. There are no tests developed yet, so far I know, that can specifically measure if you are prone for gaming disorder or gaming addiction. But believe me, there will be, because this is a diagnosis that's in development right now. It's been studied very extensively, and the fact that it's becoming a official diagnosis means there must be more studying and more tools to diagnose.
definitely. Okay, so let's pivot a bit and talk about technology and children.
Uh-huh.
So generally, children born in the last 15 years or so be considered digital natives as they have not experienced a time without the internet. But also, I'm sure, like me, you have seen parents give toddlers and infants, whether it's a smartphone or a tablet computer to play with,
Yes.
which which it does kind of act as a pacifier. Once you give it to the child it doesn't is not as fussy anymore, and it also encourages these youngsters exposure to and the use of technology from a very young age.
Definitely.
But there seems to be considerable concern about digital addiction among children.
Yes. Yes.
So give me your thoughts on that, please,
Yeah.
and why that might be the case. Why is there such concern?
The concern is quite obvious. I mean, there are parents indeed that satisfy their children by giving them access to this digital world, right? How many times I sit in a restaurant and I see a family with two children, and then the mother or the father pulls out two iPads, give them each one of them an iPad so they can game or play of whatever they want to do in the digital world, and mom and dad have quality time together. So I think it's a way parents are using also to deal with the hectic lifestyle. I mean, economy has changed. Parents often both have intensive working hours. So the moment they have together, give the children what they want. So we have tranquility. I think this is a problem because children are being brought up seeing the digital world as a necessity, like they need it in order for them to function. Parents that they need to disconnect the Wi-Fi in the middle of the night because their 7-year old is trying to go online.
Really?
Yes, these are things that happen.
Right.
Children that cry, children that break things in the house of anger issues because they don't get access to the internet. So, this, I do think that the whole internet world and the digital world, it came up and we were all very happy with it because it facilitates our lives, but there were never specific guidelines how to balance things out. Now we see the problems of that. Now we see what the effect is. But there are generations that already are so into that that's very difficult to change. In fact, children from 8 to 10 years old should maximum be have screen time an hour and a half a day. Can you imagine that, Michelle? A child from 8 to 10 years old having 1 hour and a half max of screen time. And I'm saying screen time, I'm talking television, iPad, computer, phone. It has a screen, that is screen time. I can't
Right.
imagine a child would accept that, you know? They're sitting for 3, 4 hours a day. That's
Yes,
normal for
yes.
them. So these guidelines come up now, of course, and it's not too late. We can still adjust certain things. So
But let me ask then.
yes,
I mean, as I'm sure you would agree, though, that at this time, this being 2019, the horse has left the stable in terms of the fact that we're in the digital age. We actually do need technology, not necessarily to survive, but we need it to make our way in the world today.
yes,
But we now seem to be having a challenge whereby we need to be exposed to the technology, we need to be able to leverage the technology, but we could also become addicted to the technology.
yes,
And therefore, we are no, there's almost a sense that we are no longer controlling technology, but technology is controlling us. So, how can we balance that in some way or change the balance to ensure that we remain in control when we live in a technological age?
yeah. Well, this is exactly what I mean. You know, there's a good point, and this is how a area technology in this sense took over without we weren't aware what the impact was. You know, so it was embraced as, hey, great, you know, this is good, this is good. But if you look at the development of technology, it paced up very fast. I mean, our parents probably they watch television and maybe they experienced that there was black and white TV and then there was color TV, you know, and this is it. And they had cassette
Yes,
and they had long play. Then that's it. That was it for them. But for us, it went so fast. I mean, I'm 46 years old and I remembered the days that there were no phones.
right.
Yeah, there were no phones. There were no mobile phones. And then the first mobile phones came in, and now you cannot imagine life without a phone. So it went very fast in the technology, and I think now that it's becoming a problem, we're paddling back, trying to balance it out, working with a generation that for them it's quite normal that everything is digital and we should go on. It's not a problem that we live in a digital world and we need to move on with it, because I do believe in that, and I do believe that you cannot stay behind. You have to move on with the technology and the development. The only thing is, and this is where humans have always had a problem with, and that's why psychologists will probably have worked for years yet to come. I don't think that robots will take over this job. I don't know. Talking about digital, we're taking over, but balance seems to always have been a problem in the human race. Balance. So it's not about good or bad. It's about how do you balance things out. If we see children getting obese because they sit at home after behind the laptop, they should open our eyes. And say, okay, listen, of course, digital is good, but you need to exercise too. You need to do some sports. You need to do get some outdoor activities. You know, so
Mm.
it's about um, how can we incorporate the digital movement, digital world, let it move and let's get on it, but do not forget other areas of development which are very important in our health.
Question.
Mhm.
As you mentioned, development, because I was having a conversation yesterday in anticipation of this discussion and talking about how children, I guess primarily because they would not have been exposed to anything else, how their development is changing, attitudes, behaviors, their probably ability to interact with people face to face,
Yes,
to read nonverbal cues,
yes,
how those things are probably being affected by technology and the fact that, if one wants to communicate, you send a text,
yeah,
you know, you don't necessarily talk to somebody or speak with people confidently face to face. So I don't know if you can give us some thoughts and insights into how we are changing developmentally as well.
This is exactly what I mean with now we are seeing these changes, and there are changes on different levels. On the motor physical area, there are big changes that we see.
Mm.
For instance, what we've seen changing is physically less capable children, physically less how do you say developed. So I'm
Right.
talking about balance. I'm talking about fine motor skills are less developed than they used to be.
Okay.
Uh, but also problems with position, with their not position. How do you say
Posture.
posture? Yes, with their posture. A lot of children with lower back pain or neck problems because of this posture they're having. They're not walking straight, they're sitting, and they're the whole time sitting a lot in this digital world. Also, condition, sleep quality. I said before, obesitas, overweight, also
Hmm.
one big problem. But in fact, there are some pluses too. What we see, eye-hand coordination has been improved.
Yes.
And we understand why. The
Yes.
eye-hand coordination is much better than in earlier years. That's a progress. On a cognitive level, we see changes too. Things like attention deficit problems, memory is being affected, and that's quite logical, right? Because
Yes.
nowadays, if you don't write it down in your agenda, if you don't put it on in your smartphone, it's like you will probably not remember it. It should be
Yes.
put somewhere. So, which is perfect. It works. Only what it does is that we don't trigger and we don't use our memory as we used to.
Exactly. Even something as simple as phone numbers.
Phone number,
You know,
yeah.
you just put it in your phone. You don't have to remember them anymore.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know the phone numbers of people that I call every day. Can you imagine? I don't know
Yes.
that because it's a name in my phone. I just have to press that name and it rings. So these are things where our memory is not being used as intensive as it used to. And well, the brain is very simple. If you don't use it, you lose it. On the other side, there are other capacities we use much more now. We are
Mm.
much faster in finding information, in organizing information, and being very logical in the way we research things. Yeah, that is a skill that we see much better developed now than we used to have. Yeah, so we have a higher reasoning capacity. But again, like you said earlier, weaker expression of language, for instance. If nowadays you ask a 7 or 8 year old, "What's your name? How old are you?" They will, be very shy and look at you like, "What are you asking? I don't know the answer of that simple question,"
Mm.
because they're not accustomed to express themselves so overtly, so vividly.
Hmm.
They express themselves with a headphone up, where they're the leader of their peloton in the game they're playing. That they can do, but when you ask them face to face, they become very timid and very insecure about the questions.
Yes.
What we also see is social emotional. We have some changes, social skills lesser developed. But what we also saw is more aggressive behavior in children.
Okay.
Yeah, more aggressive behavior, and that has a lot to do with not being able to express themselves as fluently as maybe the average would be able to. Uh,
Mm.
And if you cannot express emotions, then it becomes a frustration, and a frustration reacts in aggressive behavior. So that's all has to link with this the social skills that are not being triggered as much as they used to be triggered. So yeah. On the other hand, the digital development, Michelle, I always say it's a beautiful development because we can get information. Our children know much more, but if it has to go, it has to sacrifice other skills that are needed to do something with the information, then we need to balance that out. We need to balance that out.
Definitely.
Mhm.
So, Doc, we're winding down now. So, I think that we probably could begin to just tie up some loose ends. So, if, for example, just going back to children, and if one is a parent or a guardian and they're concerned about their child becoming addicted to technology, what advice would you give them versus a, a child that the parents are feel as if the child is addicted to technology? One where you're just concerned about it and trying to do preventative things, and probably one where the child may already be addicted.
Yeah. So, okay, let me start with the parent that is concerned. I do, first of all, I think parents, and I hope this podcast will help people who are listening to start being more alert to their loved ones surrounding them. We're talking about children, that is good, but also your partner, your brother, your sister. If you see behavior changing because of this technology of digital world, start being alert and asking them for, okay, is this normal? Can you do without it? Have you ever tested yourself to be one day or half a day without your phone? Things like that to start creating awareness about behavior. And a lot of people don't. They're not focusing on the patterns that are changing. If we talk about children and parents are concerned, start taking control. This is the first step. Start taking control. So start monitoring how many hours your child has screen time, is busy with his phone, or did you see changes in his behavior coming to sit at the table to eat, personal hygiene, school activities, friends. Start noticing if there are big changes in the behavior. Now, this is difficult because our children go through phases where this change without even a addiction would take place, right? So if we talk
Yes.
about puberty and adolescence, these are phases where children tend to be more reserved and on their own, and they don't want to interact much. But be aware if your child is very active on the internet. What is he doing? What is she doing? And the time. Most youngsters, what they do is at night when everybody goes to sleep, then they go online, and then we don't know what they do, but the whole night they can go on. It's gaming, it's chatting, it's sometimes just surfing the internet, finding links and finding information and reading stuff, which is not bad, but it sacrifices your sleep, and that is bad for you in the morning because you have to go to school, and then we have this ricochet effect. Then we have this whole effect that it will influence your career, etc. So start analyzing your child's behavior, and then if you think, okay, this is too much, have a talk with your child. If it's old enough, have a talk with your child, explaining from, listen, we think this is too much hours. We're gonna give you a week or two to give you a chance to balance that out. Probably it will be very difficult for them to do. And then you, as a parent, can step in and say, we gave you a chance. It is difficult. So now we have to help you out. The way we're going to help you out is we're going to put how do you say, some rules,
Controls or
control,
rules.
yes, rules and
Mm,
controls around your usage of the digital internet world. Yeah, so that would be a great approach if you're concerned.
mhm.
Always have this talk with your child, involve them, and let them also see that it's too much time on your phone, it's too much time on your computer, because mostly they know if and let's say if your child is sitting behind his laptop from 2 o'clock in the afternoon till 11 at night. I mean, who wouldn't be concerned, who wouldn't be aware that that's too much? That's like the whole day, so they see that too. If you talk to them, say, listen, this is too much, man. Why are you sitting? They will say, yeah, you're right. And then you get them to work on a solution. If there is addiction, of you see, well, your child is rebelling, you don't get them so far to work as a team towards changing behavior using internet or screen time, then you will have to talk with a professional because probably there's already an addiction. Yeah, and then the addiction needs to be attended in a specific way. Yeah, that's not something that as a parent it's easy. As in many addictions, that is a specific way you have to tackle, or it will become worse.
Absolutely.
Yes, there are two ways. The concern, the moment you get your child on board of working with it, that's good. That would be great as a team. The moment you see your child is rebelling against this and his or her behavior gets worse or very aggressive, sometimes depressed, mood swings, then try, seek medical help, seek professional help to see if it's not already an addiction. That would be my recommendation to deal with that. It is something that sounds very how do you say frightening. If I hear myself talk like this, it's quite
Yes.
frightening. I don't think that's the intention of this interview, but I do hope that people, when they listen to this, they become more aware. I think that is the major issue that we are trying to deal with now. And in fact, we had to start dealing with it the moment the digital world did this introduction. It's
Absolutely.
like now we're seeing, oh my God, oh, what's happening? What's happening? And but we should have known better to balance things out.
Yes, it's like too much of a good thing.
Excuse me? Huh?
I said it sounds like, with technology, it can be too much of a good thing.
Exactly, exactly. And Michelle, it is a good thing. It is. I mean, I'm so pro the technological development. I think it's a beautiful asset we have nowadays. I mean, we can find information. We're connected to the world. I mean, I talk with my brother in Holland. He's on his bike, and I talk to him and I see him, and we can smile and we can, be together with 9,000 kilometers between us. So I think it's a beautiful thing. But again, it's about balancing out. And in fact, this is something that we always need to be alert, be aware. And we're talking about the digital world right now, but it is in fact with everything. Delicious food is also dangerous. We love
Yes,
delicious food, but it is dangerous too because you can get too fat and overweight, and that will affect your health. So everything is about balance.
that is so true. I think with that last statement, and hopefully this would be the takeaway, everything in balance. I would just like to thank you so much for coming and talk to us about addiction and at least be helping us to begin to get a sense of digital addiction. As you said, I think that there is going to be considerable research in the coming years on the matter, and we are probably going to see some of the true effects of our exposure
Yes, yes, definitely.
in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I think this is a topic that will be a lot of focus on it because it reaches everybody, and this is a major growth. I think it's faster than even, let's say, alcohol or drugs addiction. This is so fast because in just a couple of years we had such a development on in the digital technological world. So people, we need to adjust to this overwhelming growth. And so research is definitely needed, and I think they will focus much on this topic. And yeah, hopefully we will have more tools and be more balanced out to deal with this beautiful thing, which is the digital growth.
Excellent. So thank you so much again, Dr. Stewart.
You're very welcome. Thank you for your invitation, and I was pleased to be able to help and hopefully shed some light on this amazing topic.
That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening to the ICT Pulse podcast. You can find links to some of the things we talked about on our website, ict-pulse.com. If you like this episode, please show your support by leaving us a review on iTunes, as it will help others find the show. You can email us at info@ict-pulse.com or drop us a note on our Facebook page, facebook.com/ICTPulse, or via Twitter @ICTPulse. We hope you'll join us again for our next episode. Take care.